Hi, this is Andre. I want to talk about the mute function in the Echoplex Digital Pro. Mute also encompasses possibilities for start, stop, and retrigger. So to start with, this is the mute button right there. It has two modes in the parameter matrix. So if you come down to the second parameter row under the mute column, you have CNT for continuous or continue, and you have STA for start. Let's start with start. Here's a loop I built up off camera. Quantize is off. I'm going to push mute, and you're going to hear the loop I built up. So it's an 8-cycle loop, and right there is the start point of the loop. Boom. Now, when mute is set to start, that means that pressing mute will make the loop go silent. When you come out of mute by pressing mute again, it will restart from the beginning. That sort of idea. So this is why I say that mute can be thought of as a start-stop command, because if you have it configured this way in the preferences, it's basically doing exactly that. Now, the alternate setting for mute is to have it set to continuous or continue. The idea here is that the loop is going to keep playing in the background even when it's muted, and when you unmute the loop, it's going to pick up wherever it happens to be. So mute, come out of it. So now you can see we're not restarting the loop every time we come out of mute. And you can look over here at the cycle display if you want to. That sort of thing. Now here's something pretty cool. Whatever your mute mode setting is in the parameter matrix, you can also have the other setting available using undo. So whatever mute mode is set to, undo will give you the other type of functionality. So the two types of mute modes are start and continue. Let's set that to start. Let's get out of here. So right now, mute mode is set to start. When I come out of mute, it's going to restart from the beginning. If I want to come out of it in a continuous fashion, I can press undo. That gets us out of the loop and lets it pick up wherever the loop happened to be. So again, go into mute. If we want to restart from the beginning, we can exit with mute. If we want the other type of exit, if we want to exit in a continuous fashion, we use undo. So you have both forms available at any given time. You can also flip that around. So if you change mute mode to continuous, now undo is going to restart from the very beginning of the loop. So you basically always have both ways of exiting mute available to you at any given time. The main decision for yourself is whether you want the mute button itself to be set to start or continuous. For me personally, I would probably think in terms of if you want to be able to do this kind of retriggering thing. You know? Or if you want to do a lot of quickly going in and out of wherever the looper is. Because if you get out of there with undo, then you immediately go back into a regular playing state. And if you keep pressing undo, you're not going to keep doing muting stuff, you're going to start undoing layers in your loop. So it's going to be very much a matter of personal preference as far as what you want to have it configured to. For me personally, it kind of makes the most sense to have mute set to start, just because for me, I don't use mute very much, but when I do use it, I like the idea of having it restart right from the beginning as soon as I get out of mute. Now, mute mode will also respond to your quantize setting with one exception. Right now, we have quantize off. Let's set it to cycle. The one exception is that if you have mute mode set to start, it immediately restarts the loop as soon as you press mute. It doesn't wait until it gets to the beginning of the next cycle. So even if I unmute in the middle of a cycle, it immediately restarts. But if I go back into mute, it's going to wait until the downbeat of the next cycle. So if you look over here, when it's quantizing, you'll see the 0, 0, 0 waiting state. We don't get that if we unmute, but we do get that if we go back to muting. And if we change the mute mode to continuous, then both unmuting and muting are going to wait until the downbeat of the next cycle. Let's say for some reason that you want to be able to unmute and want it to be quantized and want it to start right at the beginning. Let's see what happens if we set quantize to loop. Mute mode is set to start. Let's see what happens. Okay, no such luck. Oh well. Now how about if we set it to continue and see what happens there. Boom. Yay, it works. So if you want to be able to unmute right at the downbeat, but you want to have it quantized for whatever reason, set quantize to loop, set mute mode to continue, and that's going to quantize the unmuting to the beginning of the loop. It's going to sound like you're restarting from the loop, because you basically are, but the difference here is that you're going to be waiting until the loop gets to that point. 5, 6, 7, 8, boom. Whereas if you have quantize turned off, and you have it set to start, it's going to sound the same, but functionally it's going to happen immediately. It's going to happen as soon as you unmute. Now there's some added extra functionality that happens when you're in mute mode. When you are muted, the insert front panel button becomes a retrigger button. So we're in the mute state right now. If I press insert, it retriggers and then mutes. While you're in that retrigger state, you can retrigger. If you don't want the loop to repeat for the entire time before unmuting, press mute again. If you retrigger and then you don't want it to mute again, you press undo. And then it keeps playing normally. Let's see if it responds to quantization. I actually have no idea if it does. Cycle. Nope. Going back into mute responds to quantize. Going into regular playback after retrigger does not seem to. Okay. Good to know. Now you can also use mute as an alternate ending to record. So what I'm going to do is engage threshold recording, which is on the bottom parameter row behind this guy's claw, under the mute column. Threshold recording sets up a noise gate, which means that if you press record, it's going to wait until you play a note that's loud enough to exceed the gate. There it is. Now it's recording. If I end with mute, you don't hear anything. But now if I press mute again, you hear the loop just as I recorded it. We're in quantize. Let me turn that off. And here again. Same kind of functionality works if you use it as an alternate ending to record. Finally, let's talk about something related to mute, but not explicitly done with the mute button. We've been talking about retriggering. If you're in mute and you hit the insert front panel button, that will retrigger the loop. You can also get a retrigger effect from the next loop button if you don't have more than one loop going on. So if your more loops value is set to one loop, the idea in the design is that if you only have one loop, then next loop isn't going to be doing anything. So it's a kind of added functionality bonus. When more loops is 1, let's get out of mute, then the next loop button becomes a retrigger button. And you don't have to be set up in mute to do that. You can be in a regular playing state and just pound the next loop button as long as more loops is set to 1. If you have more than one loop in your more loops parameter, then the retrigger function is disabled, because then next loop is going to be used to go back and forth. I believe you can actually overdub and retrigger at the same time, which means that if you play a note at the same time that you press the retrigger button, then that overdub will automatically happen at the beginning of the loop. Let's find out if that's the case. Cool. So right now I am plucking notes with my left hand while I'm playing the next loop button with my right, and I'm pressing it at the same time that I'm playing a note So this way I can have all those overdubs landing right at the start point of the loop. And as long as I'm pressing next loop at the same time that I'm playing the note, then they're all happening in the same spot. I'm curious if we can undo. Nice. Okay. So that has been a look at mute and start and stop and retrigger on the Echoplex Digital Pro. Thank you so much, as always, for tuning in. I will talk to you guys very soon.